everybody and welcome back to That Fiction Life. Today we are talking about episode 6 of A Discovery of Witches. I had the most highest hopes in the land for this episode because it was my favourite segment of the book. We're finding out so much about the characters. Of course we had Diana's little mishap where she gets kidnapped by the crazy bitch Satu, and I had so many visions, you know, like the witch ones, of how this is going to turn out, and I had really expected this very hardcore episode full of danger. Comment down below what were your thoughts about this episode because I was absolutely dying of feels. If you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure you are because I am reviewing all of these episodes. So let's begin with Satu's torture chamber. You know, this whole introducing Satu early on gave us such a great anticipation to seeing this all play out, because the fact that we met her beforehand, we got to know her crazy side a little bit. When she shows up with Diana in this creepy castle thing, we felt that something bad was going to happen, even if you hadn't read the books. At first, I feel as though they were holding back. It's very intense in the book, and the way it's written is very vivid and it felt so real, and it felt way more hardcore than it did in this episode until we get the branding part. In the moment, seeing the scene, Satu going crazy witch magic on her, it was intense. And everything you wanted from that scene, Satu's vacant expression as she was doing everything, it was acting gold, and I'm so pleased with this casting. I love that she brings this sort of multi-dimensional Satu that is totally a villainous character. So back at Sector, Matthew looking for Diana was... Hi. You know that scene with the ruffled hairs? He gets out of bed and realises his mate is nowhere to be seen. Very good scene. But his reaction to seeing her missing was everything I wanted it to be. His desperation when he goes after Baldwin and throws him on the table and bites him. It was the vampire element that I think we were missing a little bit, because thus far we have gotten to see Matthew in his element being a vampire. But that scene with Gillian last episode did not convince me. It was comical, like I mentioned in my review. So the oubliette scene, they don't actually say this word, so if you haven't read the books, I'm referring to the freaky tunnel that Diana was thrown into. So in the books, I imagine this to be very big and obviously hard to get out of. This looked like something you could easily go down and then go back up again. So when Baldwin, when they find her later, says that, you know, Matthew, if you go down there, you will not get back out. I disagree. So unless they're saying that there's some kind of magical border that will prevent you from getting out that way, I do not believe that physically a vampire couldn't go down there and get her out. So she's in the oubliette / well, and in the book we had this very poetic sort of experience. She's in the oubliette, she has these ghosts around her that are talking to her. The way the spellbinding even is written, it's metaphorically a ribbon that's tied around her which she has to sort of unlock. And in the show it was just kind of, so hey, we're gonna pull a Superman and take you to somewhere that looks like Krypton. It just didn't feel like the spiritual moment that I had when reading the book. I was very underwhelmed with that scene, especially, as I already said, when Matthew can't go and get her. It's like, you sure? I know there was no reason for them to show us Marcus and Miriam in this episode, but I really, really miss them, and I really wish we had a scene with them. Some kind of scene where they're, I don't know, looking through the lab, finding some kind of clue as to why they're gonna come visit later on in the show, because they do travel to New York to see Diana and Matthew. And I was just like, if you're gonna show us Javert, can you show us the rest of the peeps? Thanks. They just didn't utilise the ability to show us more points of view. So as convincing as they made the attack on Diana with Satu, you would have thought that she would be way more hurt than she was. And I feel as though people would think I'm nitpicking on this a little bit. She downright had PTSD from everything that Satu did. She couldn't have people standing behind. She was so traumatized, and I really thought that they would bring this into the show, because I love that part of the books, because we got to see this vulnerable side of Diana dealing with her mental health after such a crucial and traumatic event. Just for her to be in this oubliette, jump up and say hey, skip to a scene in Matthew's bedroom where she can barely stand, and you could argue it was adrenaline, which makes you do all sorts of crazy shit, but I really wanted this scene to be deeper and explore Diana's trauma and how scared she was of the fact that she can be hurt. And she's not just this invincible witch that everyone thought she was. And I'm referring to all the vampires and witches that think she's lying about her power. But a gentle Matthew is my favourite thing that I think exists ever in the history of life. Him caring for her, even though it wasn't as intense as in the books, it was just everything I wanted. The small kiss that he gives her before she looks in the mirror. So the Knights of Lazarus being brought up to prominence, because if you hadn't read the books you wouldn't have known how crucial this little gang slash team is and how serious you have to take the commands of your leader. The scene with Baldwin and Matthew was probably my favourite scene in this whole entire episode. It was so powerful. The way Baldwin was head of the congregation, puts it down straight, I'm taking Diana away, you get no say, I'm in charge of the family, so I make the decisions. And then Matthew pulls out the big gun, and Matthew pretty much went from being the subordinate in the family to making Baldwin his bitch. The way his demeanour changed when he realised that Matthew is being deadly serious here, and I liked that we got this little bit of vulnerability from Baldwin, because even before he said that he's going to take Diana back to the congregation, he did really help in getting her out. So there are a few things that were very unrealistic to me in this episode, and a lot of it boils down to the aftermath of the rescue, which was my least favourite part of the episode just because I expected more from it. I think there was a lot of potential to make this episode very epic and intense. I really wanted to have some sort of Game of Thrones epic fantasy feeling, and even though this is a hella romantic series, let's be real, but we do have those historical aspects that I wish they brought in more. And sometimes I think it's becoming a little bit cliche, even though I'm really loving the show because I think the casting is exactly what I wanted from these characters and everyone's characterization is great, but again, I feel as though the script is lacking this depth that the book had. Towards the end, I really expected more of a bloodlust from Matthew because he is a very vengeful person. Refer you to the books. People that haven't read the book must have been so confused. I felt like I had to fill in a lot of the gaps, so make sure to leave your comments below. Of course, subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. As usual, subscribe right here on this button. And then my last video is just here. If you have not already, make sure to check out my very in-depth fangirl freakout review of the first book as well. So I'll link it all down below for you. So have an amazing day and I will see you next time. Bye!